Far Cry is one of Ubisoft's premier franchises. Since the third title back in 2012, the Far Cry franchise has consistently adhered to the same formula, only slightly deviating from entry to entry. Where the Far Cry team got to really try out new ideas was with the spin-offs. Blood Dragon completely transformed Far Cry 3 into a Tron-infused 80s romp, while Primal took Far Cry 4 back into the Stone Age. Now, Far Cry 5's spin-off, New Dawn, is here. So what new ideas does it bring to the table, and more importantly, how fun is it? Set 17 years after the explosive events of Far Cry 5, the story of New Dawn focuses on survivors trying to scrape out a living in Hope County, Montana, after nuclear fallout. In the wake of such destruction, communities have popped up to bring back something close to civilization. However, an entity known as Highwaymen have also popped up, and they're looking to prey on the weak in post-nuked Montana. You play as Captain, who gets ambushed on your way to bring supplies to Prosperity, a safe haven for resident survivors. After escaping that sticky situation, you're pretty much free to explore however you see fit. Far Cry has always placed heavy emphasis on the villains, and New Dawn does not disappoint. The twins Mickey and Lou serve as your antagonists for this outing. In classic Far Cry tradition, you'll only be introduced long enough to see them posture about and kill someone briefly before you're off figuring out how to thwart their plans. You don't interact with them much throughout the story, but it's interesting to see how their ideologies really come into their own over the course of the game. The two's manic yet serene nature also reminded me a lot of the past baddie, Voss. Mickey and Lou also seem to have gotten most of the effort put into their characters. Compared to them, the rest of the game's entourage comes off pretty standard, or straight up annoying. This doesn't detract from the game much, since story really isn't the reason that you're here in New Dawn anyway. The real attraction here is in the gameplay, and what's here is pretty fun for a Far Cry title. New Dawn reuses a lot of assets and animations from Far Cry 5, and although it doesn't push many boundaries, it's still serviceable enough to be engaging. You'll still be spending most of your time shooting, driving, and climbing all over irradiated Montana. The gunplay feels good, and you can access any of your stash at a moment's notice from a quick weapon wheel. You have a bunch of throwable weapons like knives and Molotovs that you can craft on the fly as well. Do you approach a situation with some stealth, sneaking through tall grass and taking out guards quietly with throwable knives? Or do you barge in guns blazing with a saw blade launcher and Molotovs at the ready? Well, the choice is yours. New Dawn is more than happy to give you options. Most of the gameplay in New Dawn is in the pursuit of materials. Whether this is from plants, wildlife, or just random junk lying around, all of the objects you pick up serve an important purpose. Materials can be used at workbenches to craft new, more powerful weapons. These weapons come in different tiers, with the higher tiers requiring more materials. Although you'll start out scrounging for materials, after enough time played, you'll have more materials than you know what to do with. You essentially scavenge for materials in order to make better weapons in order to make finding materials easier. The gameplay cycle is very clearly a grind, but it's an enjoyable one at least. Most of the missions that you'll be playing through will involve liberating an area from hostiles or retrieving an item for an NPC, although you'll occasionally be treated to a turret section or exhibition missions where you have to grab a package and hold out against enemies. Emergent missions will always spring up while you're exploring Montana too. You can barely go 5 minutes without seeing a tanker of supplies barreling down the road or a group of survivors fighting around a supply drop. The world of New Dawn feels alive with all the NPCs and wildlife around, and even though these random events repeat themselves far too often, there's always something to do if you look for it. You'll be in charge of growing prosperity throughout your time in Montana. Upgrading your home base can unlock things like more fast travel locations, increased health, and tougher vehicles. You can find companions in the game who will be happy to accompany you, and these companions can be made stronger at the base as well. As you improve life at Prosperity, you'll notice the residents also become more satisfied with their lives. Children will play, and people will start to paint your home base. Although it's purely cosmetic, it really does help to make it feel like you're making a difference in the lives of those survivors. Another thing that New Dawn gets right is with its look. Montana looks really beautiful considering it's a post-nuclear area. Instead of going for a gritty, washed-out apocalyptic vibe, New Dawn paints all the landscapes in neon colors, from the rolling hillsides to the man-made structures. Even the wildlife is affected, tinting the fur of wolves and mutating the whole look of cougars. It's a pleasant shift, and it demonstrates that things are a lot different from the last time you were here in Montana. There are also other touches that bring the world to life. Weapons look like they've been cobbled together with duct tape. The Highwaymen aren't decked out in military-grade body armor, and they're using beat-up motocross gear. Small decisions like this make the world of New Dawn seem real, and the attention to detail is one of the game's biggest strengths. If there's one flaw that holds New Dawn back from being a truly great game, it's the brain-dead AI. Although they can hold their own in a firefight, your companions have a lot of pathfinding issues. This can lead to frustrating issues where you get separated from a friendly and have to watch helplessly as they get gunned down from behind a wall. Enemies don't fare much better though. Your foes will constantly get stuck on geometry and will often disregard their own well-being in the middle of a firefight just to run out and revive a downed comrade. There was a turret section early on in the game where I had to hold off enemies closing in on my vehicle, but once I saw my supposed assailants continue to crash into one another, I stopped shooting for the rest of the mission and emerged unscathed from that. It's too bad because otherwise great set pieces can be ruined just from incompetent AI. New Dawn also lets you play the entire game through in online co-op. Although I wasn't able to try this out, if any of the past games are anything to go by, this game will also be a blast to play with a friend. All of New Dawn's content seems open enough for another player to fit in just as easily as your computer-controlled helpers do. The thought of running from irradiated bears together with a friend does seem too good to pass up. Far Cry New Dawn is a fun time. It's an enjoyable romp through a beautiful world filled with destruction. Even though it doesn't radically change the formula from Far Cry 5, it's still an enjoyable time. While some fans may be disappointed that there wasn't more of a tonal departure, such as the previous spin-offs Blood Dragon and Primal, it's hard to be disappointed when the gameplay that is here is so good. And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily. Also, don't forget to switch on the bell notification icon, that way you don't miss out on any of our videos.